Well, we were saying about it being Chavdala Teves, and that's the Yahrtzeit of the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe is going to connect the significance of this being the Yahrtzeit of the Alter Rebbe and Parsha of the week, Shmos, because all significant and important days have to do with the Parsha of the week. So the Rebbe is going to analyze what the Parsha is about. The Rebbe is going to analyze what Chavdala Teves, the Yahrtzeit of the Alter Rebbe, is about, what it has to do one with the other. Beginning of the Sikha, Shmos and Chavdala Teves says, Oidesis Talkas Rabbeinu Azokin, Kosav Kwek Yisad Mar Tzemach Tzedek, La'achar Shehiskir Bekitzur, HaTetulim She'av Rabbeinu Azokin Bebrichosim Ner Tzorfatim. The Alter Rebbe was running away from Napoleon. Napoleon was then busy conquering Russia in the War of 1812. The Alter Rebbe did not want to be under French rule, and it's a whole story for itself. So he was running away ad higia lekfar Piena, until he reached the village of Piena. Erev Shabbos by Yishlach Tov Kufayin Gimel. In the year of 1812, about, in Shabbos, before Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach, he reached the village of Piena. Motzei Shabbos Kodesh Shmos Chav Gimel Earl Chavdal Teves. When it was Motzei Shabbos, that year Chavdal Teves was on a Sunday. So on Motzei Shabbos, going into Sunday, that was the night of Chav Gimel, the 23rd, going to the 24th of Teves. Kechatzois Shah Yud Aleph, like 11:30 in the evening. Nishba Aron HaKodesh Mar Yisrael Mashiach Hashem B'chu. So the holy ark, the luminary of the Yidden, the ones anointed by Hashem, these are all like expressions of praise, was conquered. It's an expression that's a lot of times used when they're talking about the tzaddik passing. They're saying, they refer to it as he was conquered, that finally the Malachim Milo like defeated and conquered the holiness of the tzaddik. Yedua shalachol ma'edei Hashanam v'yesh loimer shal derech ze gam limei tzadikim u'memela gam limei ledes v'yemei hilula shel tzadikim v'yoytz b'zeh yeshna shayches l'toichen ha'parsha b'Torah shekoyim b'is hizman. That there's a connection between them. The fact that we read the Torah on a parsha in a particular date, the date of the year having to do with a Yom Tov, it's a Pesach, a Chanukah, a Yutas Kislev, or it's a date having to do with a tzaddik. So since a tzaddik's life is a very important and significant time in Klal Yisrael, so his birthdays and his Yahrtzeit, Yom Hilula is the expression for a Yahrtzeit, has a connection with the Parsha of the week. There's the well-known saying of the Alter Rebbe that a person needs to live with the times. So if you need to live with the times, meaning the Parsha of the week, that's the living with the times that the Alter Rebbe was talking about. So if Chavdala Teves, a day of the Yahrtzeit of Tzaddik, comes out in a certain week, you have to live with it. When did it actually come out? In which week? If it's Motzei Shabbos, it's already going to Sunday. So therefore, it has to do with the following week. It has to do with the week of Parshas Vayera. From the fact that Tzemach Tzedek was not happy with just mentioning the date, the Earl Chavdal Teves. He also wasn't happy mentioning just what day of the week it was, Motzei Shabbos Kodesh. Not only that, he mentioned specifically that it was which Motzei Shabbos Kodesh of Shmos. He even pointed out what day the Shabbos was, that the Shabbos was the 23rd of Teves. That therefore we must say that the passing of Alter Rebbe also has a connection with that. Or else he wouldn't have pointed out that Shmos is the time, or Motzei Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Shmos is when he passed. Befrat, is man haistalkos hameduyek hoyek al shoyna tzamach tzedek sham kechatzoy shah yud aleph. Since he specifically said what hour it was, 11:30, Yedua hashoyis the matzah Shabbos kodesh kodim chatzoyis alayli hasham shayches al Shabbos benegel lekama dinim v'inyanim. When up till midnight, there are certain halachas that apply that are unique for Matzah Shabbos. Up to midnight, it's still considered Matzah Shabbos for certain halachas. So this is an additional proof that there's a connection. Golus v'shibud Mitzrayim. So now the Rebbe is going to contrast the difference between Parshas Shmos and the Parshas before Shmos, and Parshas Shmos and the Parshas after. Shmos is unique in connecting to the Golus of Mitzrayim, to the enslavement in Mitzrayim. Not the Geula, he's going to say, that has to do with Va'era and Boy. Not the time before they were enslaved, that has to do with Vayechi, and that has to do with Vayigash. Shmos is focused primarily on one thing, just the Golus part. HaParshas HaKodemus Parshas Shmos, Parshas Vayigash, Parshas Vayechi, Oiskes Bezman Shalifnei Shibud Mitzrayim. Acher HaYirida LeMitzrayim. Because in Vayigash, Yerei speaks about how Yaakov and all the children moved to go into Mitzrayim, and in Vayechi it talks about how they lived in Mitzrayim. As long as any one of the Shvatim was still alive, as long as any one of the brothers of Yosef was still alive, even after Yosef passed away, the Egyptians didn't have the courage to, let's say, enslave them. So therefore, Parshas Vayigash and Parshas Vayechi is before the enslavement. Le'idach, Parshas Shelacher, Parshas Shmos, Parshas Ve'era, Parshas Boy, Hashagam Shagam Bahen Medubar Oides Hatkufas Hashibud Shal Yisrael b'Mitzrayim. In Parshas Ve'era nidim kvar hasimonim la'ascholos ha'geula, because you have all different types of makis took place and miracles. V'ha'oises v'ha'moifsim sheher HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'ha'makis she'evi al Mitzrayim v'ha'fashibud gufa nasa kal yoiseroz v'yiseidim ezu amr Chazal berosh Hashanah batla avodah ma'aviseinu Mitzrayim. Even though Pesach was when they went out, but 6.5 months earlier, on Rosh Hashanah, before that, they already were not anymore enslaved. He says in the footnote, there's a difference of opinion if this was during Makas Kinim, the Mak of Lais, or Makas Oriv, when they stopped enslaving the Jews. For sure that's not about the Shibud in Mitzrayim. Masha'enkim Parshas Shmos kol toichnam einay ela pratim begoydel v'kushei hashibud. Adla mesupar b'seif ha'parsha shepari gozer loisesifun losses tichbad ha'avoida al ha'anoshim. At the end of our parsha it says, after Moshe Rabbeinu appeared to Paroi, the job of the Yidden was to make bricks. So originally used to be that the Egyptians supplied the straw with which they made the bricks. Then Pari got very upset and he said, you know what? Not only are we not letting you out of Mitzrayim, which Moshe Rabbeinu requested, but we're not even anymore going to supply for you the straw to make the bricks. You're going to have to make the same quota of bricks that you were assigned to before, and we're not going to help you out with supplying you with the supplies with the straw. In other words, you're going to have to go look for the straw yourself. In other words, at the end of our parsha, it's not just that the enslavement is strong, but it even got worse to a certain degree. We say also that Moshe Rabbeinu was upset about this. And he says that from when you sent me, it got worse. So we see that this week's parsha is like the lowest point in the shibud in Mitzrayim and the enslavement in Mitzrayim. The Alter Rebbe was also in a state of exile. He was on the run from Napoleon. Ukol Shoyna Tzemach Tzedek Yishabarchum Mitzarfatim Vayim Metultol Ad Biyasim Lepienachul. Gechol Prote Ad Tiltl Vayisurim Amatorim Bigers Matmuram Tzoi. The Tzemach Tzedek just says it in short, but his son, the Middler Rebbe, says it at great length, all the different suffering and problems that Alter Rebbe went through on his running away from Napoleon. You're doing Divrei Balai Lulam, Oidus Ha'inyan de Hilula V'Yistalkos, Sha'oz Oilam L'mayla Kol Maisa V'Terosei V'Avidosei Asher Ovid Kol Yimei Chayav. V'Adavar Mizgala Umeir V'Chinas Gilim L'mayla Mata Beis V'Terosei. During the date of the Istalkos, what we have is like a compilation. When a tzaddik works all of his life, so every moment of his life, he's doing one mitzvah, another mitzvah, another mitzvah. At the date of his Istalkos, at the moment of the Istalkos, it's what's called Oid HaOil Al Kolana. It all gathers together to go up with him, and that powerful illumination, that powerful revelation impacts this world as well, and this always repeats itself on every Yahrtzeit as well. So he says, "U'mi'achar shekol me'ura, harehu k'bashgacha pratis, v'alachas kama davar she'ira l'tzadik v'nasi adoir." For sure, it's by hashgacha pratis. Muvan shezeh she'istalkos ad morazok and hoyse begolus was not a negative thing. We could say, what a terrible thing the Alter Rebbe passed away in Golus. Just the opposite. Moira ala kesher v'ashayches ha'pnimis b'maisa v'terosi v'adosi shabal yem hilulam ha'oilim u'mizgalim u'mi'irim be'isei stalkus l'mayla sheba'avoida b'zman ha'golos davka. In other words, there is something about what Alter Rebbe's avoida was about that expresses itself in a state of exile. And that's why Begashmis, he was also in exile. We know that everything that occurs in the physical world is a result of what happens beruchnis. Since in the spiritual realms, what the Alter Rebbe's whole avodah of his entire life had to do with the idea of Golus, that's why on the day of his istalkus, when then it was the complete elevation of what was going on his entire life. So where does the istalkus take place? When the Alter Rebbe personally was in Golus. Yesh loymar shezeu gam tamadover shechag ha'geula ha'achra d'yutes kislev shetziyin rabbeinu azokim b'chaim chayuse b'almadein haya b'makim ha'golus sheboi nistale kanal medivrei tzemach tzedek shebiyosan lepiena hoyse erev Shabbos vayishlach d'zeh haya koydem yutes kislev. So even yutes kislev happened when he was in Golus. Why? Because just like the day of the passing of the Alter Rebbe is what the Alter Rebbe is about, so is Yutes Kislev what the Alter Rebbe is about. That's why even Yutes Kislev wasn't Golus. The Kivim Yutes Kislev Rosh Hashanah Chassidus, who on the Kuda Hatichayna the Maisa V'Teros V'Avidos Shabalei Lulam Hakshurim L'Mail Savoy the Bezman HaGolus Kanal Al Kein Gam Yutes Kislev HaAchrim B'Chayev the Hainu HaIlu Yagodl B'Yoyser the Yemnala Zeh B'Tkufas Chayev B'Almadein Shari B'Chol Shana V'Shana Yorid U'Meir Oy Chodesh U'Mechudesh Lo Yemeir Adayin Ma'olam. It says every Rosh Hashanah comes down a totally new light and a totally new revelation. So therefore, when we're talking about the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, there's a totally new light and revelation of Yutes Kislev comes down. And where did that light manifest itself? He was in Golus at that time. In the very place in Golus, he marked Yutes Kislev in the very place in Golus where eventually he would pass away. Because that's when he has his ultimate elevation of all of his avodah. So the question is, what's the connection? What's the connection between Golus and what the Alter Rebbe represented? To be able to explain that, the Rebbe is going to explain in general the concept of Golus that's in Parshas Shmos, and how really the whole idea of the name of the Parsha doesn't fit in with the idea of Golus. Let's see it inside. Ois Dalet. V'yuvan lacher bi'ura inyan anal shetoichem Parshas Shmos hu Golus v'shibud Mitzrayim. Kvar nisboyer kama v'kama pa'omim sheshmo shal ha'parsha mabia es toichem kol ha'parsha. Ve'einem moving binyanenu. Teuchen Teves Shmos u'lechoira hepech ha'inyan de Golus Mitzrayim u'mekam upon him. There's multiple reasons why the name Shmos is not appropriate for a parsha that speaks about Golus Mitzrayim. Aleph. Firstly, Amr Chazal Kanal calls man shoyach mem kayin Moshe Yordel Mitzrayim lo shibdu ha-Mitzrim bi-Yisrael. Nimtza she'inyan Shmos b'nei Yisrael aboy Mitzrayim mana shibud Mitzrayim. What does it say? Eile Shmos b'nei Yisrael aboy Mitzrayim, right? And it talks about Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisrael, all the Shvatim. Those names, those people were the reason that there was no Golus Mitzrayim. If you're talking about the names of those that went down, that's just the opposite of Golus. There could not be Golus as long as those people were alive. So the names of those people is just the opposite of the idea of Golus. Beis, another problem. Gam had Gosham Yuchedes the Teves Shmos Gufa Masha Kadosh Baruch Hu Shav Umanam B'Shmoisam. Why does he have to count them by name? Harehi Gedivrei Rashi Lo Hidiach Chibas. Hashem shows His love when He counts it by name, when He counts the Yidden by name. Love is seemingly the opposite of Golus. Hepech inyan ha-Golus v'kushi ha-shibud Yisrael shalom mesubar Parshas. So again, the idea of the names of the Yidden being enumerated is just the opposite of the idea of Golus. Gimel Shemes Elu Kemaimer Chazal Al Shem Geulas Yisrael Niskrukan. The Medrash explains that the reason why these names were mentioned over here because these names hint at the redemption of the Yidden. So again, everything about Shemos has to do with Geula, not what the whole parsha is about, the Golus and Shibud Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe is going to explain first this question: how can you have a parsha that's called Shmos all about Golus? Yadua shenekudas ha'ilui ba'avodah d'zman ha'Golus hi she'oz dafke mizgala koyach ha'mesiras nefesh al Yisrael hanimshach mebchinas Yechidah shebenefesh etzem ha'neshama. That's called the Yechidah. V'tam ha'davar. Why does it happen only in Golus? Lefi she'hakoyach the Yechidah shebenefesh etzem ha'neshama bol de bitui beikar b'makim b'matzav shebei chasedim ha'hergish v'ha'akara b'alakus mitzad ha'koyches ha'giluyim shal neshama. When a person has their intellect understands godliness, their emotions feel for godliness, then you don't do things because of self-sacrifice. Then you're doing things because you're emotionally connected to Hashem, because you're intellectually connected to Hashem. But in times of Golus, it's also a spiritual exile. We're not intellectually connected to Hashem. We're not emotionally connected to Hashem. So why do we do it? Because of our core essence, the etzem haneshama. V'azaya iskashus be'elakus eina kolkacha idei hakoyches hagiluyim el mitzad etzem shalish Yisrael. V'lechem bezman shebeis hamikdash haya kayom ve'elakus ha'ira begilui harigam avidosam shal Yisrael hoysa be'ikra mitzad hakoyches hagiluyim. Hoysa la'makara be'elakus yizbarach be'koyches ha'pnimim v'hagiluyim d'seichel ha'midas. That's what happened in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. They understood about Hashem. They felt a connection to Hashem. Their mind was involved. Their feeling was involved. The power of the essence of the soul, that essential bond that every Yid has with Hashem, what's called, we say this in the shyness, Yechida leyachdach, the Yechida of the Yid to become united and joined with Hashem. V'dafke bezman ha'Golus, kasher ha'oyer alikiyu b'helm v'hester. Doisesenu loyroin, v'lo yitonu yadeyu adma, v'yeshnam halamis v'astedim v'nisyonis al avodah Torah mitzvahs. That's what Golus is about. There's a lot of challenges in my avodah and Torah mitzvahs. Hini oz dafke, be'eis u'mepnei nederas hashpas ha'koyches ha'giluyim shal neshama, misoirer hakoyach di Yechidah shebenefesh. Lizgaber ala koshiyim v'anisyonis b'kiyam ha'Torah mitzvah. Why? What powers this? What makes the person devote themselves entirely to Hashem? Mitzad etzem ha'hiskashrus shel Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not about their intellect. It's not about their emotion. It's because their connection, like a child, is automatically connected to their father. V'zeh ha'yin Golus Mitzrayim v'Golus b'chlal. Asher dafka idei ba lidei bitui hiskashrus ha'atzmi shel Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'zu ha'isa achana l'matan Torah. The bond of the essence of the neshama with Hashem prepared them for Matan Torah. Shekein gam tachlis Matan Torah ilahamshich alakus b'dvarim gashmim tachtoinim. What's the purpose? Before Matan Torah, they had mitzvahs, but beruchnias. They didn't spiritually impact the physical world. There was no holy objects in this world. Only through Matan Torah did the physical world become holy. Also the physical world, the tachtoinim, should also become l'dira le'yizbarach, a home for Hashem. There's Torah the way Torah is learned in Gan Eden, but the essence of Torah is when it permeates this world, and that's what happened by Matan Torah. So just like Matan Torah is about the essence of Torah, which is about permeating this world, the same thing, the Golus of Mitzrayim had to come beforehand, because the Golus of Mitzrayim is about the essence of the Yid becoming revealed as well. Vav. So now he's going to connect this with the idea of Shmos, the idea of a name. If we look at the concept, what a name is about, we're going to see that the name connects with the very essence of the person. Habir anal b'mayos havodah b'zman hagolus she'af sha'oira leki eina meir begilu. Hini dafka az mizgala etzem haneshama merumaz be'inyan d'shemus. B'shaychas Hashem la'odam hanoises Hashem matzinu beis k'tzavos. There's two opposites, two extremes. Mitzad echad roimanu shebal Hashem k'shalat zmein izok l'Hashem klal. I could live, if I were living alone without anybody, I wouldn't need a name. Ein Hashem mishamish loy ela k'emtzoi k'dei sha'azulas yuchol likro loy. If I was living on an island alone without any people, I wouldn't need a name. The only reason I need a name is that other people should be able to call me. V'hainu sha'Hashem hu l'choyre rak davar chitzoyni be'erech ha'adam. It doesn't matter to the person himself. Mitam zeh loy niton lekabel min Hashem kol musig al muhus adam anikr b'shem zeh. If you hear that a person is called Chaim, it's called Avram, it's called Yankel, is that going to tell you anything about it? You're going to hear Yankel, oh, that means he can. You're not going to know anything about him. A lot of people are called Avram, for example. They're totally different people. Why? And the Rebbe says, the loike inyan ha'oir ha'meshakif sa'moir atshim m'tzias ha'oir afshel l'kabel ha'sogeh b'moir. Chassidus talks about that the light, when we look at sunlight or any other type of light, we could figure out where it came from. You could tell from sunlight that it's the sun that's shining. You could tell from candlelight that it's coming from a fire of a candle. Different things you can figure out from light, because there's a closer relationship between light and the source of the light. But a name, you can't know anything about the person that's called by the name just by hearing the name. So it seems to be that a name is very external. But we're trying to show that in a certain degree, the name has to do with the etzem. Just like the Golus brings out the etzem of a Yid. On the other hand, Yedua Shaloshem Ha'adam Yeshayches LaEtzem Ha'adam Kifi Shulamayla Min HaKoiches HaGiluyim Shaloi Vaychoch Al Zeh B'shah Shekoidim LaAdam B'shmai Areu Poine B'chol Atzmusay. When a person is not like paying attention to you, and you call him by name, he completely turns to you. You've caught his entire attention by calling him by name. By the way, they say also, like in sales or in other things, if you want to impress people, you should call them by name. You should know about this, no? That you should address a person by name. That makes a stronger connection. No, you don't. You never learned about this? He faints. Upirish hadavar shachayis hanefesh ibematzav shalis almos v'muvdelas megila beguf. That's what it means, a faint. That the energy of the nefesh is not there revealed in the body. The person's still alive, but he's not consciously functioning. Haderech la'kitzay melfoina yai kriya b'shmai. It's brought down dafke by calling the name that calls him down. V'arezu raya she'inyan Hashem kosher v'negea be'etzem chayis hanefesh v'lachein yesh bekoichay lahamshich as achayis b'chazara bekoich saguf. Ubezeh yesh l'mayla b'shem lagabe oir da'af shemin ha'oir af shalahasig is hamor. Like we said before, you can understand about the source of the light. By grabbing hold of the light, I don't pull down the luminary, but the name draws down the nefesh. So the same thing, a name functions and is revealed where the person is not openly functioning. When he's in a faint or he's turned away from you, the name draws the person himself, just like the Golus is the time when it taps into the essence of the Yid, not the feelings and the intellect and the emotions of the Yid. Now, based on this, that we see the connection. Why do we talk about Golus, Mitzrayim, and the whole Parshas Shmos? Because Golus is about revealing the essence, and the name is about the essence. Now we can understand why the Alter Rebbe's whole Avodah is expressed by this as well. Zay, al pikol al move on akesher, bein Maisa v'teirosai v'avidosai shal balei lulol Parshas Shmos inyan Golus. Yedua shekeshem sheyeshna b'chinas Yechidah b'nefesh ha'adam. There's the essence in the person's soul. Yesh kach yeshna b'chinas Yechidah b'Torah, which is Torah Chassidus, is the essence of Torah. V'ikar hagilui b'chinas Yechidah, the Torah hu b'Chassidus Chabad. That's where the essence is revealed. He Torah Chassidus kfi shebalei lula. In other words, the Alter Rebbe. And why did he bring it down? Just like you call a person by a name that's fainted, you want to affect the body. The same thing the Alter Rebbe revealed the Yechidah of Chassidus to affect the body and the nefesh habahamis. Al manas sha'ideze yuchal adam lifel gam al nefesh habahamis v'chelke ba'olam. Why? How can Chassidus do this? How does the Alter Rebbe able to give us the tools to do this? She's galus Yechidah etzem anishama hidavke kasher gechaysav agiluyim hem matzav shel helm v'hester. That's when the Yechidah of the person becomes revealed. Keinu gam benegel Yechidah b'Torah she misgalas davke kasher aleha lifa b'madreges hatachtoines shel adam b'nefesh habahamis u'b'chelke ba'olam. Ukipizgam balai lula kol inyan Chassidus l'shanis tivius midoisav. The person's natural tendencies are not necessarily godly. The effect of Chassidus Chabad is to help the person change the non-godly nature of their emotions. So in other words, he's in a state where godliness is concealed by him. He has no feelings for godliness. And that's why there's Chassidus Chabad, that's why there's the Yechidah of Torah, that's why there's the Etzem of Torah, to affect in that spiritual darkness in his life that it should be elevated. Zoya Nekudam Shetefes B'Maisa V'Teros Ravidos Shabali Lulav Alter Rebbe L'Mailas HaAvodah B'Zman HaGolus B'Shneim Nifeles HaIzgalus D'Bechinas Yechidah Davke B'Mokim HaMushlo Megilui Oir. Both Golus and Chassidus is about affecting a place where spiritually godliness is not open. Yeduam shedargos. Now the Rebbe is going to add one more point having to do with the name of the Alter Rebbe. Yedua shedargos avodos shebal elula merumozis b'shmoi shneir zalm. Shneir meloshen shnei oir. We'll soon explain what that means. V'zalmen uoisis lizman. Ubeiz Hashem es yachad mevatim es achibur de shneir le'idin hazman. That's why you have one person with two names indicating the joining of the two. Shnei oir with time. What is this shnei oir with time? Va'bir b'zeh shnei oir pirushay k'maymer ha-Baal Shem Tov v'etz Rabbeinu HaZaken sheyoir es ha'olam v'beiz oiris. The Baal Shem Tov said about the Alter Rebbe that he will illuminate the world with two types of light. Oir ha-Toras ha-nigla v'oir Toras ha-nister. The Alter Rebbe was a big Talmud Chacham in Nigla, witnessed the Chibur of the Shulchan Aruch, which is a very powerful Nigla Sefer, and his obviously great insights and ideas and illumination in Pnimis HaTorah and Chassidus, in the concealed part of Torah. That's why he's called Shnei Oir, because he illuminated the world with both of these lights, like the Baal Shem Tov said. Now the Rebbe says, but sometimes a person could be two separate tracks. I have my Nigla and I have my Chassidus. But the fact that the Alter Rebbe was called Shnei Oir together, this means they weren't two separate things. V'achidish the Shnei Oir b'teva achasu sheitzel Rabbeinu HaZaken hayachibor the Nigla v'nister b'shleimus ad shenasu la'achodim mamish. V'akoyach al zeba mema shehimshich v'gilo es etzem mehus ha-Torah Yechidah shebetoira. How can you take two seemingly separate lines of Torah, Nigla and Nister, you're calling one revealed and you're calling one concealed? How can you mix them together? You need to have a part of Torah that's beyond both of them, something that's higher than both of them. The essence of Torah can cause the joining of both of them together. Shehi lamayla mekol hagdarim dehelam v'gilui. V'lachein yesh b'koicha lachaber es beiza oiris the nigla v'nister the Torah. V'zois, himshich lizman. What is man? Time. Hashayach la'olam. Time is not something that's to be found in the spiritual realms. Time is supposed to be found in the world. So time is something connected with the world. Gam l'shoin helam. Olam is the same word as the word concealment. Dahainu shagam ba'olam atachten yoir shnei oir. Hachibur de beiza oiris. Va'az dafke ba'agilu de b'chinas Yechidah shebetoira kemevor la'el shegilu b'chinas Yechidah dafke madrega achitachtoinu v'makom she'ene kli l'giluyim. So specifically in the world, in olam from the word helam, concealment, that's where you had the level of the revelation of the two lights of Torah. Why? Because Yechidah, the essence, always comes down to the lowest place, just like the essence comes down to in the place of Golus. Shagam hanyonim shalamayla meishtalshlu shalamayla mekach sadam yavoyu begilui b'pnimius gam bekach sadam v'loirak b'oifen shal helam kibizman hagolus. The af sheyesh mayla b'avoida b'zman hagolus she'oz misoideres mizgala b'chinas Yechidah shebenafesh kanal haritachlis hagolus hi hagula shebal acharel. Ve'al yada, through the Golus, you're coming through the Geula. So it's not that we're meant to stay in darkness. We're illuminating the darkness to come out of the darkness to the light, to come out of the darkness to Geula. We want the essence of the soul to impact our intellect, to impact our emotions, to impact our thought, to impact our speech, to impact our actions. Yesh leimer b'derech efshir shezeu achidush shel bal ha'ilula b'toras chassidus Chabad she'etzem pnimis ha'Torah shehi lamayla meishtalshus u'lamayla metam v'das v'lechura ein adam yachol hakabla kim b'kabbalah v'emunah. That's why Kabbalah is called Kabbalah. The hidden part of Torah is called Kabbalah because it's not something that you could really come onto it intellectually. You need to receive it from someone. So the inner part of the Torah would seemingly be something that is only open to be received in a way of Kabbalah. So the Alter Rebbe wanted that this etzem should permeate even in our minds, even in our hearts. Afhi tumshach ben nigla uba'asage b'chabad sheminaf adam. By days of tifal gamal midoisav sheyisoyda ba'ava v'yira. So the Yechidah should permeate every part of our being. V'zem berumas b'kach she'istalkos ha'isem moitzah Shabbos kodesh earlier in Aleph the Parshas Va'era, even though we said that Tzemach Tzedek didn't mention Parshas Va'era. But Lepoil, when did it take place? It took place on the Sunday of the week when we read Va'era. Aval Va'era loy nisker begoli. Why? Because the purpose of Golus is Geula. The purpose of this etzem is to become out in a revealed way. In Va'era, it already started, Hashem already starts speaking about Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei that's going to become revealed by Matan Torah. Bechinas Atzmos Ein Sof, Hashem's very essence. Asher Ados Loi Bol De Gilui. Like Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu at the beginning of Parshas Va'era, Loi Nikarti Lahem B'midas HaMitas Shali. I did not reveal myself to the others with my true essential being. Only now, by the Yetzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah, will I reveal myself truly. Teves Va'era Atzma Hi Arem L'Shoin Re'iyah V'Gilui. Hainu Shabachina V'Amadrege Shalamayla Mishtalshlos Yordeh Le'Riyah V'Gilui Ba'ofen Pnimi. So that is the point. The essence should come down in a revealed way. That Golus should bring to Geula. By right now, even before the Geula comes, we should take that essential bond that we have to Hashem, have it permeate our mind, have it permeate our heart. And that is through the teachings of Chassidus Chabad that the Alter Rebbe taught us.